I was 8 years old the first time my dad brought me to a job site. No warning, no asking if I wanted to go. Just tossed me in the truck with a thermos of black coffee and a hard hat way too big for my head. He said babysitters were for people who raised houseplants, not sons. I remember the steel rebar smell, the dusty wind, the sound of boots crunching over gravel. Guys shouted numbers and measurements like it was a different language, and somehow I understood all of it. My name's Connor Jensen. I'm 33, born and raised in Duluth, Minnesota. While other kids were at soccer practice or messing around on Xbox, I was hauling scrap plywood and memorizing zoning codes. I could read blueprints by the time I was 10. At 12, I caught a drywall mistake on a duplex build before the inspector did. My dad called it Jensen eyes, said I had 'em. That was his version of love. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? He ran Jensen Contracting like it was a religion. No shortcuts, no excuses. I grew up believing there was only one future for me, and it was paved in concrete and lumber. The blueprint was clear. Graduate, work under him, eventually take over. And I stuck to the plan. Turned down some wild offers after college. One from a big firm out in Denver that came with a moving bonus and a car. But I came back, put on the boots, the flannel, and got to work. Travis, my older brother, had already pieced out by then. He left the day after graduation with a backpack and a secondhand Nikon. Said he was going to find himself. Last I heard, he was in Berlin, taking black and white portraits of stray dogs or something. Me? I stayed, 10 years in the trenches. I rebuilt our outdated bidding system, digitized our archives, fixed the payroll mess no one wanted to talk about. I made calls at midnight to get deliveries back on track. There were winters I didn't see daylight, except through drywall dust. But I kept us going. Through the lean years, through COVID, through every subcontractor meltdown and late permit. Jensen Contracting wasn't just my job. It was my life, and I never once questioned if that loyalty went both ways. The text came in Tuesday afternoon, short and sharp. Mom, dinner at 7, everyone. Important. I knew what that meant. Garlic roast, her go-to dish when someone got engaged, divorced, or died. The kind of meal that made you chew slower and wait for a bomb to drop. By the time I pulled into their driveway, Travis was already parked out front. His beat-up Subaru still had a Lisbon parking sticker on the windshield. He was barefoot when I walked in. Of course he was, leaning against the counter like he hadn't disappeared for a decade. "Look at this guy," he said, arms wide. "Still rocking the boots and flannel, huh?" "Still allergic to socks, I see," I shot back. He laughed like we were close. We weren't. Mom came out of the kitchen wiping her hands on a towel, eyes lighting up like Jesus himself had walked in. "Travis, honey, tell Connor about that little island you stayed on. What was it called again?" "Vis," he said, smiling. "Croatia. No cars, no clocks. Just sea and light." She sighed like he'd just solved world peace. "Isn't that magical?" I sat down, chewing on the inside of my cheek. The whole table smelled like rosemary and garlic and bullshit. Dad was already at the head of the table, quiet, doing that thing where he rubbed his thumb over his ring finger like it helped him think. I nodded at him. He nodded back. That was our love language. Dinner was polite, forced. Travis told stories about chasing storms in Spain and some gig photographing sand dunes in Morocco. Mom hung on every word. I just kept pouring gravy over my meat like it'd help me swallow the growing knot in my throat. Halfway through dessert, peach cobbler, because of course it was, Dad cleared his throat. "We've made a decision," he said. I set my fork down. "Travis is coming on board," he continued. "He's going to be creative director for the company." I blinked. "Creative director?" Travis jumped in like he was waiting for the pitch. "Yeah, I'll be helping modernize branding, outreach, maybe even shoot some promo content. You know, fresh energy." "Fresh energy?" I repeated. Mom reached across the table, touched my arm. "Connor, don't be like that. It's a good thing. He has a real eye and—" I pulled my arm back. What exactly does he know about job site logistics? Zoning compliance? Client retention? Dad looked at me, steady, cold. "It's a different angle. The industry's changing. So, after 10 years of keeping this place above water, now we need a rebrand?" Travis raised his hands. "Hey man, I didn't ask for this. I just offered to help. It's still your thing." But that was the problem. It didn't feel like my thing anymore. I stood up, pushed my chair back slow enough to make the legs scrape the floor. The next morning, I was back in the office before anyone else. Didn't sleep. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every word from dinner like it was a bad movie I couldn't turn off. I walked straight into Conference B with my coffee still burning hot, pulled up the Hollow Ridge dashboard, and went into prep mode. We were supposed to finalize the contract that week, 2 years of my life riding on it. Designs, permit approvals, materials tracking, vendor bidding. Every detail had my name on it. During the meeting, I asked Dad if we were still waiting on legal's final review. He barely looked up from his notes. Already with legal. Should have it by Friday. I paused. I didn't upload it yet. He blinked once. Well, it's handled. I didn't say anything else right then. Just sat through the rest of the call with my jaw clenched. Afterward, I went back to my desk and pulled up the shared server. Hollow Ridge was gone. No project folder, no blueprints, no drafts. Not even the placeholder I'd made back in Phase 1. I checked my backups, then the external. Nothing. That's when my stomach dropped. I went to the archive room. The place always felt like a morgue. Cold, buzzing lights overhead, metal shelving packed tight with years of old permits, contracts, tax documents, and dusty hard drives. I ran my hand along the edge of the shelf marked Projects Closed, then ducked down to the bottom. Near the floor, half buried behind a stack of maintenance reports, I saw it. A plain black folder, no label, no tag, looked newer than the rest. I opened it. The top page read, Jensen Contracting, Ownership Transfer Agreement. I stopped breathing for a second. Second page, Travis Jensen listed as majority shareholder, 68%. No mention of me, not in the summary, not in the footnotes, not even in the damn carbon copy fields. My ears rang. I gripped the edge of the metal shelf until my knuckles turned white. 4 months ago, I was fighting to keep the company solvent, meeting with vendors, skipping paychecks, working weekends. While they handed him the company on paper, I slammed the folder shut and stood up too fast, bumping the shelf behind me. Something metal clanged to the floor, but I didn't look back. I walked straight to my office, locked the door, and laid the folder out on my desk. I read it again, slower this time, section by section. There it was, written in plain language. Majority ownership transferred from Ronald Jensen to Travis Jensen, contingent upon expanded strategic direction. Strategic direction, my ass. I pulled up the call logs from the last 3 months. Dad and Travis had been talking almost daily, most calls over 20 minutes. They'd been planning this, quietly, behind my back, while I kept the place running. I sat there staring at the folder until the office started filling up outside my door. Footsteps, voices, laughter. Then I heard Travis's voice, clear as day. Yeah, I'll swing by Hollow Ridge after lunch, see what's what. Like he had a say, like it was his. I didn't say a word. I just slid the folder into my bag, shut down my monitor, and walked out without telling anyone where I was going. I drove straight from the office to their house. Didn't go home, didn't change. Just texted my mom. I need dinner. All of us. Tonight. She replied 5 minutes later. Okay, 7, I'll make something. When I walked in, the same damn roast was in the oven. Same smell, same table, same chairs. But everything felt off. Too quiet, too stiff. Like even the walls knew what was coming. Nobody said much at first. Travis was already there, in some loose sweater and those same beat-up moccasins. Dad was pouring himself a scotch. Mom tried to act normal, tossing a salad like her hands weren't shaking. I didn't wait for dinner to be served. Just reached into my bag and pulled out the black folder, set it down in the middle of the table. No one touched it. I opened it slow, let the pages fall open. Ownership transfer, Travis's name, the 68% in bold. I didn't say a word. The numbers spoke louder than I could. Mom was the first to react. What is this? She whispered. Her voice cracked at the end. I looked straight at my dad. You tell her? He exhaled through his nose like I was a burden. It was a strategic move. Travis brings new energy, a different angle. New energy? I cut in. You mean the guy who hasn't lifted a 2x4 in 15 years? Travis shifted in his chair. I didn't know how to tell you, man. I didn't even ask for that percentage. He offered it, said the company needed something different. Different from what? Me working 18-hour days while you played photojournalist in Budapest? Mom looked between all of us, eyes wide. Ron, 68%? You didn't talk to Connor? I made a decision, Dad said. For the company. I pushed back from the table, still standing. I kept this place from folding last winter. You remember that? Payroll was 2 weeks from collapse. I refinanced equipment, renegotiated contractor terms, and took zero salary for 4 months. Connor, sit down, Mom said quietly. No, I shook my head. This isn't just about a bad call. This is betrayal. You cut me out without even a conversation. And for what? A new logo? Travis raised a hand like he was calming a dog. Look, man, I get it, but we don't have to turn this into some war. You're still vital. Stop, I said. Just stop. I picked the folder back up, closed it, and looked at each of them. I'm done, effective immediately. I'm no longer with Jensen Contracting in any capacity. Connor, Mom said, her voice cracked again. Please? I turned toward the door. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. I walked out without another word, without dessert, without goodbye. 2 days later, my phone rang. Ellen's name lit up the screen. She never called me directly. Always emails, always formal. I picked up. Yeah? Her voice was low. Come to conference B quietly. I didn't ask questions, just turned the car around. By the time I pulled into the lot, my stomach was already tight. I parked in the far corner out of view and slipped in through the back entrance near the break room. Ellen met me by the printer, didn't say a word, just nodded toward the hallway. I walked slow, stayed behind the blinds, kept out of sight. Conference B had floor-to-ceiling glass. I stood just far enough back to watch without being seen. There he was, Travis, standing like he owned the damn room, and in front of him, my pitch. Same slides, same flow, same title font, same damn color scheme. I'd spent an entire weekend choosing that green because it matched the siding supplier's eco-branding. He was talking like he built it from scratch. Holleridge is more than a build. It's a vision for sustainable mid-size housing in transitional growth zones. My words. Word. For. Word. I scanned the room. Couple junior staffers were nodding. One even took notes. Then I saw Dad, sitting in the corner, arms crossed, nodding like this was exactly what he wanted. I turned and walked straight to Ellen's desk. She was already pulling up the backups. I knew something was off, she said, not looking up. He asked for the master folder 2 weeks ago, said you'd approved it. But I had a gut feeling. She clicked into our internal server and showed me the timestamps. My original files, auto-saved, locked under my ID, created 18 months ago, modified continuously through last week. Everything he's presenting in there, she said, is built on your files. I stared at the screen. It wasn't even subtle, my structure, my layout. I stepped back. Print everything, backups, version history, metadata logs, all of it. Ellen nodded. Already did. She handed me a fresh folder, fully labeled. I took it and walked out without another word. By the time I got home, I didn't feel angry, just cold, focused. I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and pulled up a blank email. Subject line, intellectual property misrepresentation. Holleridge. I kept the tone calm, factual, no emotion, just dates, names, and attached evidence. No threats, no dramatics, just the truth. I stared at the draft for a few minutes. Then I saved it to drafts, leaned back in my chair, and let the silence settle. I didn't need to yell. They'd hear me soon enough. The next morning, I sent Dad one email. Short. Director. Subject. Holleridge IP violation. Body. You have 48 hours to correct the record with investors, clients, and staff. Otherwise, I will. No sign-off, no emotion. I waited. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, still nothing. By noon, I was done waiting. I attached every file Ellen had printed, timestamps, screenshots, side-by-sides of my original designs, and Travis's copied slides. The recipient list was clean and brutal. Holleridge's investor team, their legal department, our subcontractor partners, our main concrete supplier, and the landowners from Phase 3. Subject: ownership, misrepresentation, and design theft. Holleridge Project. Body: this is to clarify authorship and ownership of the Holleridge Project design, timeline, and strategic vision. All evidence is attached. No explanations, just facts. I hit send at 2:19 p.m. By 3:42, I got a text from Ellen. Ellen, investor rep just left. Holleridge is pulling out. Travis walked out 10 minutes ago. Didn't say a word. I didn't reply. I just stood up and poured myself a glass of water with a hand that barely shook. That night, the ripple hit hard. Northland Electric called first. They wanted to revisit scope on their Holleridge contract. Then the excavation crew emailed, something about budget misalignment. By morning, 5 vendors had asked to pause until the legal was clarified. Dad didn't call, Travis didn't text, but the silence was louder than either of them screaming. Around 9 p.m., my phone rang. Mom. I let it buzz once before answering. Her voice was quiet, tired. Connor, please tell me you didn't do what they're saying. I didn't answer right away, just let the pause hang. They said Holleridge is dead, she went on. Everything's unraveling. Ron's locked in his office and Travis. I don't know where he is. I kept my tone steady. I didn't kill anything, Mom. I just took my name off something I built. You know what this will do to us? She said, voice cracking. We could lose everything. We? I said. When I was bailing water last winter, Travis was taking photos of laundry lines in France. You didn't seem worried about we then. She didn't respond. I softened just enough to breathe. I told Dad to fix it. He didn't. This was his choice. I know he handled it wrong, she said, almost a whisper. But is this really what you want? To watch it all fall apart? I looked around my kitchen, my laptop still open, folder on the counter, coffee from that morning gone cold. I'm not the one holding it up anymore, I said. That's the difference. She didn't say goodbye, just hung up. I turned off my phone, shut the laptop, and went to bed. Let them sit with it. Let them see what happens when the one doing all the work finally steps out from under it. The next day, around 10 a.m., I got a message. Dad, Harper wants to meet. You pick the place. I picked a cafe on the edge of town, the one near my first solo build, that strip mall site with the crooked utility lines and garbage plumbing. No one else wanted it. I made it profitable in under a year. I got there 10 minutes early, ordered black coffee, sat facing the door. When Dad walked in, he looked thinner, like the weight of the last week had finally cracked something. He spotted me, walked over slow, no smile, no handshake, just pulled out the chair and sat down across from me, like this was a funeral. I slid a single sheet of paper across the table, one copy, one page. He didn't even read it yet, just looked at me. You've made your point. No, I've made my position, I said. This is the only way forward. He picked it up, read it slowly. I could tell where he hit the key lines. His eyebrows twitched at the number. 38% equity, he said. Correct. A board seat. Mandatory. And full control of Holleridge. I didn't blink. Non-negotiable. He set the paper down, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. You know we're bleeding now. You hit us at our weakest. No, I said. I hit back. You did the bleeding. He looked away for a second, like the street outside suddenly got real interesting. Contractors won't even return my calls. Travis hasn't been in the office since Monday. Ellen's considering walking. Because you built the whole thing on a lie, I said. You stripped me of ownership, copied my work, and gambled it all on a guy who's never even run a punch list. I thought maybe we needed something different, he muttered. You needed someone cheap who wouldn't challenge you. He looked back at the paper. His fingers tapped the edge, like maybe that would shake a better offer out of it. You have 48 hours, I said, standing up. He didn't move. I leaned in slightly. No room for negotiation, no phone calls, no second meeting. Either this gets signed or Jensen Contracting becomes a memory. He looked like he wanted to say something, maybe argue, maybe beg. But nothing came out. I left him sitting there, still staring at the paper. No emotion, no handshake, no deal unless it was mine. 43 hours after I slid the paper across the cafe table, I got an email from Dad's assistant. Subject: Jensen Equity Meeting, confirm time, Thursday, 3 p.m. Location: Hanson and Givens Law, 4th floor, Suite C neutral territory. I expected that. When I walked into the conference room, nobody stood up. Travis was slouched in a chair near the end of the table, looking like he hadn't slept, or shaved, in a week. Mom sat stiff, clutching her purse in her lap, like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Dad stood near the window with his arms behind his back, staring out over the parking lot like it held answers. The attorney nodded at me. "Mr. Jensen, we're ready when you are." I pulled the folded document from my coat pocket and placed it flat on the table. Same terms, same sheet. Nothing added, nothing softened. I cleared my throat. "Let's walk through it." Everyone looked up. No one interrupted. Item 1. 38% equity to be issued in my name immediately. Not held, not pending. Issued. The lawyer nodded, flipping pages. That's been included in the revised structure. Item 2. I take full operational control of Holleridge and its budget, vendor contracts, branding, and public materials. No approval needed from other parties. Travis gave a tiny nod. No words, just eyes on the paper. Item 3. A permanent seat on the board, with veto power over expansion projects and outside hires above pay grade 5. Still, no one spoke. I took a breath. Final item. Branding and marketing decisions involving Jensen Contracting cannot be made by anyone outside of internal operations leadership. That includes Travis. His role becomes advisory only. No direct control of campaigns or project naming. That one hit. He blinked, sat forward like he might push back. Then he just looked at me, long and empty. "Fine." I turned to the lawyer. "All clear?" "Everything's aligned. Documents are in front of each party. You may begin signing." The silence felt like a 1,000-pound weight sitting in the room. Mom didn't move, just sat there, staring at the papers in front of her, mouth tight. Dad reached for the pen, then paused, looked across the table at me. His eyes didn't hold apology, just something between defeat and calculation. "You really think this is going to fix it?" he asked. "No," I said, "but it'll stop the bleeding." He signed, one stroke at a time, slow and deliberate, then pushed the folder to Travis. Travis didn't read it, didn't question a thing. He signed, closed the folder, leaned back in his chair, and looked away. That was the moment it became real. Not when I sent the email, not when Holleridge collapsed, not even when I walked out of that first dinner. It was that pen scratching the page. No hugs, no eye contact, no words of reconciliation. Just legal weight and acknowledgement. I stood up, collected my copy of the signed documents. "Pleasure," I said, deadpan. Nobody laughed. I walked out without another glance. I didn't walk back into Jensen Contracting. I tore it down and rebuilt it. First thing I did was just kill the old timekeeping system, the same paper timesheets they had used since 1996. I installed digital tracking, set standard hours, and made overtime automatic. Nobody had to beg for what they earned anymore. Then I rewrote the contractor agreements, every single one. Clear timelines, tighter scopes, penalties for delays. I cut the fluff, raised rates where it mattered, and fired 2 subs who'd been coasting on Dad's old loyalty discounts. Office culture got gutted next. No more drop-in meetings that hijacked people's days. I made policies, schedules, boundaries. I didn't care who complained. My office became the new center. All glass, clean lines, not a damn paper stack in sight. First thing I hung on the wall was the original Holleridge sketch. Coffee stain in the bottom corner, my notes still scrawled in red Sharpie. I framed it as is, no edits, no polish. That stain reminded me what building from scratch looked like. Ellen stepped in as operations lead. No one deserved it more. I gave her a raise and full control over internal systems. She came in on her day off to move into the new office I gave her, right across from mine. The silence in the hallways was different now, not cold, just focused. People weren't waiting for instructions anymore. They knew who was steering. 1 week in, Northland called. Their rep didn't waste time. "We'll reopen Holleridge talks, but only if you're leading it, not your team, not Jensen Contracting, me." I didn't gloat, didn't even smile. I just nodded and told them to send over the amended proposal. I walked out of that call and stood by the window for a minute. Trucks were coming in. Framing crews were back on site. It wasn't loud, no big celebration, just motion, purpose, and it was mine. 2 days after Northland came back on board, Ellen walked into my office holding a thick cream envelope. "Your dad dropped this off," she said. "Didn't stay, didn't say anything." She set it on my desk and walked out. No name on the front, no return address. Just the Jensen Contracting logo, faded like it had been sitting in a drawer too long. I opened it carefully. half expecting legal forms or another mess to untangle. Instead, I pulled out an old sheet of blueprint paper, the kind we used to sketch on before software took over. It was folded twice, soft at the creases. I opened it fully and saw the drawing right away. A little cabin, 2 windows. A porch, chimney drawn at an angle because I couldn't figure out the right scale. On top, in my 15-year-old handwriting, I'd written, Jensen home. I remembered that night. I'd spent hours at the kitchen table sketching while Travis was out at a party and Dad was watching some home renovation show. I'd asked him what he thought. He barely glanced up, said, "Stick to real work." I turned the paper over. One line was written on the back in his handwriting. "You were always the builder. I just didn't see it. That was it. No apology, no explanation. Just the truth." I didn't cry. I didn't call. I walked over to the wall beside Holleridge and pinned the drawing up right next to it. 2 frames, side by side, one drawn in a messy living room by a 15-year-old kid with a mechanical pencil. The other built across 2 years of grit, sleepless nights, and silence. I didn't win by yelling louder. I didn't win by taking anybody down. I won by staying, by showing up, by putting the damn thing on paper and building it with my own hands. Jensen Contracting wasn't about legacy anymore, not names, not inheritance. It was about truth. And now, finally, it had mine in it.